Bill, it's a change from what you have been doing. You have been not only on the county commission, but chairman of the county commission. Why did you make the decision to run for sheriff?
Well, the number one reason is about a year and a half, 2 years ago, Sheriff David Carpenter had a long discussion with me and asked me to run for sheriff. I started considering it at that time. I've got really excited about it. I'm passionate about it. It brings back into my forte, and I believe I'll be a better sheriff than I will a county commissioner. Definitely more experience there, and that's my forte with law enforcement, get back into law enforcement. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm excited about doing it.
Of course, Sheriff Carpenter has endorsed you.
Yes, he has.
As his potential successor.
Yes, he has, and that was he gave me his endorsement on February the 28th of 2018. So this was not something that he had done a long time ago or without thought. I'll let the sheriff speak for himself about his endorsement, but I really appreciate the fact that I have the good sheriff standing behind me.
Tell us a bit about your law enforcement experience. It goes back a number of years.
Back to 1975. I started in 1975, went to work for Harvin Krause. Harvin Krause came to see me as a citizen and said, you know, I really need some help. And that's the first time I ever thought about getting in the law enforcement business. I've heard people say that they wanted to be sheriff ever since as a child. Well, this is not a childhood fantasy of mine. I always thought about being Superman or a cowboy when I was a child. Never thought about being sheriff. But after Harvin Krause came to see me is when I really started thinking hard about maybe being a deputy sheriff, and I started working part-time, and I enjoyed it. Went to work full-time. Got into supervision in 1978, made sergeant, made lieutenant in 1980, 1990 I made a captain, and a captain is part of the administration. And so from 1990 to 1994 I was captain, chief deputy for 11 years at that time. Came back part-time, and then David Carpenter selected me as his chief deputy emeritus, and I worked for David from 2010 through 2014, and I think we really got a lot accomplished. David Carpenter and I have a special relationship because of the fact that I mentored him when he was a young officer, and he worked for me for a lot of years, and I've turned around and worked for David Carpenter. And I have really enjoyed that, and I think that he's meant a lot to me, and I think I've been able to mentor him and made him part of what he actually was, because we're all results of our experiences and the things that we go through in our life.
I'm going to ask you about two things that have been brought up by your opponents as potential negatives. They see them that way. One is your age. You're older than some of the other candidates. I'm not sure. I think maybe you're the oldest.
I am the oldest. I'm 67 years old. I'm in excellent shape physically. I'm in excellent shape. I'll be glad to release my medical records. I don't take any I'm not on any diabetes medicine. I'm not on any heart blood pressure medicine. I take an aspirin a day just because the doctor said that'd be a good idea. And I'm in excellent physical condition. I've got both my own knees, and I'm very mobile. I understand that I'm not 24 years old anymore, and I think the office of sheriff is an administrative job. Of course, one of the problems that I'm going to have, and my wife has told me that if you happen to get this job, you know you're not 24 anymore. And I said I understand that, but I started out as a patrol officer. And I know about the physical side, and I know that that's not my job. My job is to make sure that the people that are on the road get the things that they need. I'm a motivator, I'm a leader, and I've got to instill in them to be better than they can possibly be, and to make us good officers for the sheriff's office.
The other thing that has been brought up is that you have not been actively involved working with the sheriff's office in the last few years.
Well, as chief deputy from 2010 to 2014, I was extremely active. Now, the reason I left law enforcement in 2014 was that I wanted to resign as a deputy sheriff so that when I went on the Board of Commission, nobody could say that's a conflict of interest, that you are still a county employee drawing a check as a deputy sheriff while you're on the county commission. I thought that had the appearance of being improper, and so I totally resigned as a deputy sheriff in 2014. Now, am I 4 years behind? Possibly, but I've worked pretty hard at making sure that I look at legislative updates and the thing that our officers go to annually to make sure that they know about the new changes in the law.
If you take over as sheriff, will there be any significant changes in the operation of the sheriff's office?
I would like to think that the citizens of Lincoln County would almost have no notice of what takes place in the change of administration. I want to make sure that it's smooth. If I'm able to get this job, I want to make sure that we have a smooth transition from David Carpenter's administration over to mine. David's done a fantastic job. He's worked hard. You know, for some odd reason, there's people out here that want to talk about corruption. The only way that they can get by with saying anything like that is to try to throw mud on me and two other officers that work at the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, because I guess they figure they're getting a 3-for-1 deal, and that's, I don't mind it. I hadn't said anything about it. I hadn't addressed all this stuff because I've got a pretty tough hide. I've been in law enforcement for a long time. I know how to handle those things. But what I hate about it is we've got an excellent sheriff that's done a magnificent job, and he's trying to retire. And people are throwing junk at him that he does not deserve. He is an excellent individual, and I really appreciate the job he's done for me and for this county. And I want to make it a pretty simple transition. I want it to be unnoticeable by the citizens.
You were, I think, perhaps the person who instituted the idea of having offices in certain areas of the county. Can you tell us about that, and do you plan for any expansion?
Matter of fact, Barbara Pickens was the sheriff at the time, and she allowed me to make a radical change at that time. No other sheriff's office in the state of North Carolina had a CompStat type delivery of services. Now what is that? That means that we are community policing based. We have these district offices out in different areas of the county. Right now we have 3, Adam, Baker, and Charlie. And I developed those, and they have stood the test of time. Now, you know, if when you come up with bad ideas, they're not going to stay in action very long. But I'm fortunate enough with my experience to know things that work and things that don't work. One of the best things that we've done is to deliver these services through our district offices. We allow these commanders at these district offices to have different responses to the needs that they have in their own communities, because as we all know, the west end of the county is a lot different from the east end of the county, but there's 3 different sections right now. I would submit to you that we're probably getting pretty close, that we need the 4th, which would be somewhere in area 16 and 73. If we leave the current Charlie district and just move it down to that area, then we could start the 4th district, which would be maybe the Denver district. Instead of calling it Delta, let's name it Denver, because we had the D letterhead already there. Denver district along with the Charlie district. And because of the growth and we're almost becoming a small city in some of these places, and that growth is going to continue, and we've got to be prepared to meet the challenges ahead and the needs.